Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conversations on NHX. Today we have with us a very special guest who has been in our studios before. But today he is here with a reason. India will shortly celebrate Vijay Diwas. Many of you will ask, how different is that from one that we celebrated at Kargil? Well, this is a different thing. This was a surrender of the Pakistani army to the Indian army in Dhaka in the 71 war, which India decisively won and which led to the creation of what is now called Bangladesh, then called East Pakistan. Welcome to the show, Colonel Umesh.
Thank you, Suresh.
Just to give an introduction about you, Colonel Umesh Kokte, a retired colonel, comes from the Army's education wing, sir.
Yes.
And of course, you would have seen the war up close and personal also in terms of what happened. And you are a chronicler of a lot of military events that happened. We have spoken about this earlier also.
Yeah.
But the 71 war was different in many ways. One, yes, it was possibly the first time that the political leadership listened to the army and decided not to jump in immediately. And I remember seeing that movie and also reading about General Manekshaw saying that we are not ready yet. You will have to wait for 6 months, sweetie, he said to Indira Gandhi. Yeah. So the question is, well, that proved to be a correct decision because the monsoons would have hampered the progress. Yeah. But there were many things in the war which got lost in the final analysis. A lot of brave hearts, a lot of people who were involved in the war. But there were 5 or 6 instances which we could remember in Indian Army's annals of history, which may have nothing to do with the 71 war, but there were people, there were places, and there were instances which I'm sure you would have it chronicled with you and are ready to speak about.
Yeah.
In today's show, Colonel, we will take up 4 such instances.
Right.
Now, which one would be the first?
Before I actually narrate the first one, the 71 war, as you rightly said, it was a decisive victory, and 16 December the Pakistani army surrendered. So the Vijay Diwas is celebrated for many reasons. The first of that is that the Lieutenant General of Pakistan Army, Lieutenant General A.A.K. Niazi, he surrendered in front of the Indian Armed Forces and the Bangladesh Army, the group, that is a volunteer group. The second thing is that Pakistan was cut into half. The third is that a new nation called as Bangladesh was born that day. And fourth, and feel more important, that after the Second World War, the highest number of prisoners of war who have surrendered was on that day. So,
across ranks.
Across the ranks. There were some civilians also.
90,000, if I'm not
93,000 of them.
Wow.
So, there are n number of examples of bravery and supreme sacrifice, but I would like to touch upon few. And the first name which I would like to start with is the chief architect of this 71 war, the 5-star Field Marshal of Indian Army, that is Sam Hormuzji Framji Jamshedji Manekshaw.
Or simply called Sam.
Yeah, briefly called Sam, and popularly called as Bahadur also in the army. Yeah, Sam Bahadur, like. So, interestingly, Field Marshal Manekshaw had joined in 1932. He was from the first Indian Military Academy course, which the Britishers had started inducting the Indian people. Right? So, he was from the first batch. So, after commissioning in 1932, the first assignment, that is the major assignment given to him, was in 1942, where he was a part of 4/12 Frontier Force Regiment, which was to go to Burma, now Myanmar. And there they had to fight against the Japanese. So he was involved into that particular operation. So on 22nd of February 1942, during the battle, what is famously called as Pedong Hill Battle, that is along the Sitang River over there, And there was a very crucial bridge. So they had to secure this crucial bridge. So as soon as they landed, and that time Captain Sam, he gathered his forces and he was almost briefing how to go about it. The Japanese attacked, and the bloody war started there onwards. And of course, Sam was fighting very bravely along with most of the sick soldiers. And unfortunately, he received 9 bullets in the liver, in the lung, in the kidney, and he was very badly wounded. But he kept on regardless, and kept on motivating his men in that situation also. And as a result, they won that particular battle. They could successfully push back the Japanese. But when that time General Cowen, who was a commander over there, he came to know and that when he found that Sam has fallen, so when he came close, he was profusely bleeding. Of course, there were 9 bullets in his stomach. And looking at the bravery, then and there on the battlefield, General Cowen decided to honor him with a military cross. He himself was a military cross awardee. So what he did is he recollected the rules for awarding military cross there on the battlefield. Then the rules for that for the bravery of a surviving soldier only it can be given.
Oh.
And when Manekshaw was battling for his life, he was not very sure that whether he will survive or he will no more be there. So then and there itself, from his chest, he removed his military cross and planted on his shoulder, on his chest.
I remember that scene from the movie. It's a wonderful scene. Him, Manekshaw, lying on his sense of humor, I think, was tremendous. Even in the most dire situation, his sense of humor was
Tremendous.
very infectious. The doctor also kind of saying, bloody well, you need to save this guy now.
Yes.
Yeah, go on, sir.
Yeah. And humor, you said, he used to call Indira Gandhi sweetie.
Yes, I remember that. He had a love-hate relationship with her, actually.
Yes. So I can say that Indian Army was lucky to have a Chief of Army Staff during 71 war as Field Marshal, then declared, of course, as Field Marshal. That time, Chief of Army Staff as
there I want you to study butting in there.
Yeah.
This is a political question.
Yes.
He was not the first Field Marshal. He should have been the first. Or rather, there were people before him also who should have who never got it.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, General Karyappa?
General Karyappa, yes.
Why didn't he get it?
Because, he was the first army chief of the independent army. And he was also a deserving officer because of his caliber. So maybe because of that reason.
Politically, he was not on the right side, I was told that. And he had a lot of run-ins with the politicians. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Sam also had a similar problem because when the Bangladesh war was starting out, he asked Indira Gandhi that he wanted to delay the operation by 6 months due to the monsoon.
Yes.
The tanks would get stuck.
Yes.
His soldiers would be struggling to reach Dhaka.
Yes.
And they needed enough time to prepare the Mukti Bahani and others.
Yes.
Now, when you look at leadership lessons, Colonel, we teach this in business schools, this is how leadership is done. But there are sometimes that incident in Myanmar, which you recollected, which is also there in the movie about Sam. It's also the fact that when you're leading your men, you have to show the valor yourself.
True.
Sometimes most of the time CEOs sit in the bunker but directing operations. But of recent also in the Indian Army, we lost a lot of majors and even some colonels. Who are not technically supposed to be in the forefront. How is this change happening?
See, Indian Army, if you see the ratio of army officers versus the Jawans who martyred, the ratio is compared to any other army in the world is highest, which gives a testimony that the officers in the Indian Army, they lead from the front. So they are not the ones who are going to sit in the bunkers and just do radio communication. They are going to be with the men. And this is because even the icons like Field Marshal Manekshaw, they have set this example in front of us.
Sorry, I broke your train of thought. I'm sorry about it, but
Yeah.
you can go back. But there's one incident which I distinctly remember reading about him was that Sikh soldier who was kind of either upset with Manekshaw
True.
or something like that, but Manekshaw took the risk
Yes.
and said this guy will be given his firearm back and he will stay with me as my ADC or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And he would get me my chai and my
Yes.
warm cup of hot water in the morning for shaving.
Yes.
Carry on, Colonel.
Should I narrate very briefly about
Yes,
that?
sir.
Because
Yes,
you
sir.
touched an interesting point. What had happened in the units, no? Even the Jawans are promoted and regular exams are conducted in the unit. So this Jawan, Sikh gentleman, Manekshaw did not qualify him. So there was a scuffle when he was resting in his tent. There was a scuffle outside his tent. And the Subedar Major came and he said, sir, ये बंदा जो है आपको जान से मारने के लिए चाकू लेके आया है. That is the time Manekshaw said, लेके आओ, अंदर लेके आओ, सब आप बाजू खड़े हो जाओ. He said, hit me. Hit me. You want to kill me? Let me see how much courage you have. And then and there he fell ashamed. He put the dagger down and he says, galti ho gaya sahab. So he told that Subedar Major, who is generally the senior most among the soldiers, we call him Subedar Major, the most respected as a person who is a kind of a link between Jawans and officers.
Okay.
So he says, "Saab, aaj se ye mera sahayak rahega." And just to one more point, see how it connects in the army. Because of this incident, when Manekshaw was critically wounded, he carried him on his shoulder. And it took him for the medical assistance. And the doctor was not attending Manekshaw, so he threatened him, अगर आप नहीं attend करोगे तो आपको गोली मार दूँ. So
Interesting.
that's how the army goes, you know.
Carry on about
Yeah.
you want to add something more on Manekshaw? Colonel?
Yes, sir. See, why I said India was lucky because, as you rightly told, Indira Gandhi and her cabinet was insisting that the war, 71 war should start in April. And Manekshaw said that if you want me to start the war, I want a clear promise that none of the politicians are going to decide when and where the war will start. It is my decision. If that is agreeable, then only I am leading. Otherwise, this is my resignation. So Indira Gandhi had no other option but to agree.
But I think the point was also that
Yes.
there was a maturity in the political
Yes.
leadership. We saw that later during Kargil when it happened, that there was, even though there was an initial setback
Yes.
in terms of maybe the intelligence failure or the failure of the scouts to keep checking what was happening,
True.
but more or less it was made up later.
Yes.
But Bangladesh was a different cup of tea, isn't it, Colonel?
Yes. 100%.
So there was a nation, East Pakistan, where one half of Pakistan was sitting,
True.
and there was Bangladeshis who were revolting against the Pakistanis.
Yes.
And then you had the Pakistani army killing a lot of civilians.
Absolutely.
Was it a mistake of General Manekshaw to wait that long? Because a lot of youngsters got killed, especially in Dhaka University and other places. So was it a political decision correct in that way that he waited and he hit it really hard?
See, I will not put it as a political decision because Sam was never a politician. That time in April, rains had almost set in and they had to go through Assam to Bangladesh. And as you know, even now, every rainy season, it gets flooded. And if the tanks have to roll, in our land only, the tanks will get bogged down. So that was one major decision. That only it is possible in winter when the weathers are clear for the tanks to roll. Second, the tanks were down in south.
You will get them all the way.
Get them all there. So he had been asking the railway minister then that give me the supplies. He says, I cannot give now.
I got agriculture produce to transport.
Yes. So these were the military reasons why. And there is one more thing. I mean, we say that entire credit goes to Field Marshal Manekshaw, but even Indira Gandhi had played her cards very well, because international say favor was also required. The international, particularly US and USSR, then they were to be taken on our side. Though USA never.
The Seventh Fleet was sailing.
Seventh Fleet was sailing there, and even Russians had brought their submarines over there. So it was a combination of the military decision and the political decision. This is the only war where, before the war started, it was an excellent combination of political and military tactics.
We had 90,000 prisoners of war with us then.
Yes.
We could have possibly traded them off for the Pakistan occupied Kashmir right now. A lot of analysts talk about this, defense and political analysts too.
Yes.
Was it right for Indira Gandhi to just let all these 93,000 men who surrendered to go just like that?
Suresh, you raised a very pertinent point. Generally, till the war, even 71 war, Indira Gandhi agreed that all the decisions from today onwards will be taken by the armed forces and politicians will never interfere. The day the surrender happened, immediately after that, it was straight away taken over by the politicians. And the army and the armed forces were just kept at bay. This is the tragedy of the Indian Army or armed forces, that till the war you are considered, and after war you are given a cold shoulder.
I remember reading about it that despite all his heroics and his kind of leadership skills and the win in the 71 war, General Manekshaw's salary was held back for some time. And I think it was, if I'm not wrong, it was Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam ji who, as a president,
very true,
went personally and gave the check in, I think, Wellington, where he was being treated.
True.
Why was this reluctance to, why was this anger against Manekshaw? Because Indira Gandhi considered him as a hero.
Yes.
But at the same time, the subsequent governments never liked him.
Yes. See, actually, how it started, after the war was over, somehow her cabinet people, they put a seed into her mind saying that Field Marshal Manekshaw will take over a country.
There will be a coup.
There will be a coup. So one day she was terribly disturbed, and she called up Manekshaw and said, I want to meet you. Are you busy? So, always in a humorous tone, sweetie, the chief of army staff is always busy, but if the prime minister wants, I will definitely come. So he went, and she was visibly very, very upset. So he asked, come on, let me know what's bothering you. So she said, you are the one who is bothering me. So, the change started from there, that till the war you are a hero, after the war you are almost...
No, I want to draw another parallel here, interesting parallel, which happened with the son of Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, where he sent an Indian army operation into what is now considered a disaster with the Indian peacekeeping force in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
You can't draw parallels with Bangladesh. It's a totally different thing.
No.
You went into a nation where you're not welcome, and you ended up in disaster, losing, I think, more than 1,500 to 2,000 men.
For nothing.
Nothing. And, Rajiv Gandhi eventually even lost his life to a suicide bomb.
Yes.
Do you think these two decisions, one was taken by Indira Gandhi with a very firm Indian army chief like Manekshaw, was the then army chief, I'm not sure who it was then, who could have said, no, we will not go to Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
But, maybe that was disregarded.
The conviction of courage comes into it. Sometimes the politicians are so overpowering that they overrule the army decisions. So
I think IPKF was one lesson that I still drive past the area in Bolaram where I stay in Alwal, and there is this Batikalova.
That gate is there.
Yeah, gate is there, and there is, you have the club, you have the army officers mess there, Batikalova.
RSI.
It really, I personally know, because one of my relatives was a young captain who was in his 20s who died in that operation.
Oh.
It was blown up by a landmine. So it was very sad. But coming back to thing, I mean, when you talk about war,
Yes.
Colonel, there are instances where heroes are made. Of course, you have generals who are larger than life images.
Yes.
You look at even the Second World War, you have a lot of generals who were like both sides,
Yes.
German side for the wrong reasons and the Allied forces for the right reasons.
Right results.
But there was one young man in the 71 war who adorns pictures, whose pictures are seen in the army cantonments.
Yes.
I have one near my house
Really?
where I stay in Alwal, in Bolaram area. When you drive past towards RSI, you see this
Yes.
picture of this young man.
Are you talking about Khetrapal?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, today's young generation, possibly, or even the older generation, wouldn't
Yes.
really know about the exploits of this young man.
Yeah.
How did he become so famous? He was just a second lieutenant,
Yes.
possibly would have just joined the army.
Yes. See, the Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, he was a fourth generation army officer in his family.
Oh.
Yeah, his grandfather was in the Sikh regiment. His great grandfather was also in the British Army. Grandfather was there. Second World War. His father himself was a brigadier, and he had joined the armed forces. So there was a very famous battle of Basantar, wherein Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, as you rightly said, a young man, barely 6 months after getting commission, the orders had come to go on war. So he fought really very bravely. His stories are out in lot many books and magazines. But connected with him, can I narrate one more?
Yes, sir, sure, sir.
And a
Sure,
very interesting
correct.
kind of a incident which happened. Almost 21 years means he was martyred in 71 on 15th, 16th of December. And in 2001, Brigadier M.L. Khetrapal, his father, he received a call from Pakistan. And Brigadier Nasser, he called him. That is Brigadier Khaja Muhammad Nasser. He called him and he said that I would like to invite you. Please come to Lahore and be my guest for 3 days. Before the partition, he had studied in Lahore. So that was the main attraction. Though his family was, his wife and his other son was not very keen that he should go to Pakistan. But he said, that's the place where I studied. So the invitation has come and he is going to arrange for everything. So let me go. So he had accepted, he went there. And on the third day, when he was returned back, evening before, that day, Brigadier Nasser, he was looking a little upset. He said, can we go to our garden and have a drink? So when they were having a drink, he was looking very upset. Brigadier Nasser was looking very upset. And he said, Brigadier Khetrapal, I want to confess something which the guilt I am carrying since the last 30 years. So I would like to confess something in front of you. I also fought 71 war, and that time I was a young major as a squadron commander of 13th Lancer, which was fighting against 17 Pune House, that is Arun Khetrapal's armored regiment. And he said, your son was holding the field on the other side, and he had destroyed almost 9 to 10 of our tanks. And he was standing like a rock between India and Pakistan, at least in the Battle of Basantar. And on 16th of December, only his tank and my tank were literally 200 meters away from each other. And both of us fired. And both of us got hit. And more or less at that time only, we received order for ceasefire. So when the orders of ceasefire came, I got down from, means that time, I mean, just imagine the scene on the battlefield. A Pakistani major getting down from his tank and walking towards Indian tank. And as he approached, he asked the soldiers, he told the soldiers that, कौन साहब ये टैंक कमांड कर रहा है, बहुत बहादुरी से लड़ रहा है, साहब को कहीं चोट तो नहीं आई? So that is the time the Indian soldiers told, Lieutenant साहब शहीद हो गए साहब.
And he was just 20,
21 years and with 6 months of service as a commissioned officer.
and he got the
Paramvir
Paramvir
Chakra.
Chakra post.
Yeah, he got
Brilliant.
the-
I mean,
yeah.
such stories are like, today's youngsters need to realize on the battlefield. And one of those tanks, I think, is somewhere in the AOC area.
Yes, yes.
I've seen that tank
Yes.
out there, the Battle of Basantar, and later, of course, the Battle of Longewala also.
Yes, yes.
But Colonel, when you look at instances like these, again, we are seeing it even in Kashmir. Again, young, soldiers trying. They may be JCOs. They may be a little bit of upper ranks. Even up to the major rank,
Yes.
getting killed.
Yes.
We all know there's a recent movie, Amaran, which captured Mukund Vardarajan's
Yes.
martyrdom. A lot of youngsters like to get into army. But what does it take to get into the army? Not everybody fights. By the way, you were in the education.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, when you're telling an army, it can be today a lady or a gentleman, because both have equal opportunity.
Yes, yes.
What is the single most important factor that makes an army man?
Yeah. But before taking on this point,
Sure, sir.
if you really analyze that why an Pakistani army officer after 21 years also, he was carrying this guilt.
Okay.
So, if you really analyze the 71 war or a little before 71 war, General Yahya Khan, he was the president also and he was the chief also. Dictator. Very bad example of a dictator. So, he had ordered that kill 3 million East Pakistanis. And this he had openly declared in a public rally in West Pakistan. That kill 300 million East Pakistanis so that we will win the election.
Bengalis.
Yes. And you know what he said? All we need to do is to kill 3 million of the East Pakistani civilians. Rest will eat out of our hand. And see the kind of character of their officers of general rank.
I think it continued right till Musharraf, isn't it?
It continued right till Musharraf.
General Zia was there. He was no better
Yeah.
than Musharraf.
And general is giving the order, and people like this Brigadier Nazi, they carried out these orders. They carried out the genocide. So they were carrying that for 30 years. He was carrying out that I have killed my own countrymen then. And also I killed a brave officer, though he was from the enemy country. To take out that guilt from his mind, he told Brigadier Khetrabal that I wanted to relieve myself from that pain that I killed a brave young Indian officer. And you know the greatness of Brigadier Khetrabal. He got up, looked into his eyes, and tears were rolling down Brigadier Nazi. He hugged him and said good night and went.
And I remember this. Sorry, sir.
Yeah,
continue.
so the question which you had raised, that why should youngsters join Indian Army, right? I slightly narrated this to connect it this way, that the young men and women, now even women are given equal status. This is the kind of a character which Indian Army is looking in their young officers. So, young boys and girls who are watching, that if you feel that you can really give to your nation, which is so demanding, which is so challenging, then definitely these are the examples which you must study, you must imbibe and try to be one like them.
As we close this conversation on Second Lieutenant Arun Khetrapal, there's one instance I read about his story, was that he was actually ordered to withdraw.
Yes.
But he refused.
Very, very interesting. What had happened is his tank was hit. And when the tank hits the rollers, they can't move. The chain gets hit, it can't move. So it's like a sitting duck. So his commanding officer was calling him on radio set that you withdraw, you come back. or come down the tank and return back. That time he said that, sir, my main gun is still firing. And I will teach a lesson to these bastards. I'm sorry, I'm using this word, but this is what Arun Kejriwal said, because it's in the heat of the moment. These are the things which come very naturally. And what he did, he switched off the radio set.
Not to get any more.
Not to get any more distractions. And the ultimate happened.
Wonderful. Colonel, as we close the first part of this conversation on the brave soldiers of the Indian Army, there are more instances which may not be soldiers or may not be even Indian Army men. We'll take it up in the second part of the conversation that we're having. And thank you very much for sparing the time and being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you
pleasure.
very much, sir.
My
Namaskar.
pleasure. Namaskar.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.